The moment Shek Yeung saw the enemy's cutlass carve through her husband, she learned two important things about herself. First, she loved Zheng Yat more than she'd ever thought she would be able to love the man who had, without much consideration of her wishes, stolen her away to the sea. Second, she would not mourn him. Their fleet had passed the 10th lunar month here, raiding off the coast of Vietnam, sails and spirits both a bit tattered after the most recent typhoon season. Merchant ships were passing through the area on their way to the Chinese emperor, each laden with silver like a noble's bride under her headdress. The emperor needed all this silver because he had spent the past few years suppressing rebellions all over the country. The imperial treasury was empty. Nevertheless, he'd recently launched an expensive campaign to end piracy in the Pearl River Delta. Not that the new laws had made any real impression in the minds of people like Shek Yeung and her crew, who lived and died by the sea's vagaries. They were starving long before the milksop emperor succeeded the throne, and they would be starving still had Zheng Yat not gathered them like limp reeds and bundled them together to make them storm-worthy crafts. So yes, she loved him. She loved him because she feared death. Slashing her way to his side, crouching instinctively at the occasional boom of cannon fire, she shouted for Zhengbo to come to her aid. The boy spun around at her voice, narrowly sidestepping a dagger to the gut as he did so. No, not boy anymore. She just still thought of him as one, even though he was already 25 and would soon inherit Zheng Yat's fortune. His habitual smirk slackened at the sight of Zheng Yat sprawled on the deck, with a dark sash of blood across his torso. He loved the man too, in his own way. It had all gone very wrong, very quickly. They'd boarded the Portuguese merchant ship in the night. If the ship had been full of silver for the emperor, they would have been looking at a windfall. Even if they'd found only sugar and sappan wood, they would have still done well for themselves. A few of her men could have made enough to feed their families for the entire year, could have returned to their homes farther inland until the next famine came along, which it always did. But the Portuguese had come prepared for war. The ship was awash with Portuguese Navy sailors, all trained to stand against the pirate ships that fogged the harbors of the South China Sea, all awake despite it being the dead of night, as if forewarned. Perhaps they'd been sent directly by their government to secure the trade route, or perhaps they worked as soldiers of fortune in their spare time. Europe almost certainly had its own share of famines. Last she'd heard, a madman named Napoleon had gotten himself elected as the first emperor of France and was warring against 7 nations at once. Where there was war, there was hunger.